Good morning. Okay. So if you guys have not already made a Unit 7 root folder, that is fine, because we can do that right now. It is exactly the same setup as it has been for Units 5 and 6, except now we're going to have a place for our scripts to live, so that they have a thing that's easily referenceable from their for their index files and whatever. So I'm going to make my way to first period web design. I'm going to create a new folder here. You can see mine is grouped together by the file type. If you want to do that, you can go to the View tab. Hi, good morning. And change this group by drop down to type. And that will give you all types of different, it'll just group them together by types. So my new folder is appearing right down here. I'm going to right click and rename on that, doing the usual naming scheme for Unit 7. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. Good morning. We're in the Zoom room. And then this is Unit 7, not 67. That would be a lot. Okay. It's going to be right underneath Unit 5, Unit 6, whatever. Inside of Unit 7 root folder, I'm going to make an SRC subfolder, but I'm also going to make an images subfolder. I'm going to make a styles subfolder. And finally, our new JavaScript home where things can live is going to be in the scripts folder. You have two options. You could check these three boxes and move all of them into SRC if you wanted to have kind of one landing zone for everything related to not HTML, not the structure of your page. That is optional. You don't have to do that. I'm personally just going to leave images in my SRC subfolder and then have styles and scripts also be on the same level, because these three pieces are kind of functional to the web page, whereas anything in SRC, if I had images or I had videos or I had audio or I had, I don't know, games, right? If I spelled it right, those are all sources, whereas JavaScript files and styles sheets are a little bit more integral to how the page looks and actually functions. You don't have to do that. The three required folders that you need are scripts, styles, and SRC. You can do whatever you want with the rest. So
do we need images?
You don't need images yet, but that's where they would go in SRC. Yeah, just put them in SRC. So I'm going to take out games. Oops. It's just the typical root folder setup, the stuff that we've been doing. We'll check these two and delete them. The only thing I'm going to leave in SRC is images for now. Okay, so your Unit 7 root should look something like this with the three S's, scripts, SRC, and styles, because those are our functional extra files that we're going to need to work with here. And then we can go into VS Code once you've completed these subfolders here, however you want to set them up that makes sense to you, as long as scripts and styles are the same type here. And then file, open folder, like we've been doing. Let's go to semester 1, first period web design, and there's our Unit 7 folder right there. Click on that. Select folder. The only thing we have in here are our subfolders, which are currently empty. So we need to make our index page like we've been doing. I'm going to call this one index 7.1, since that's our first assignment for this unit. And don't forget that .html at the end of your file, because then it won't be a smart updating HTML file.
Do we have to like do the naming style inside, or just this is okay?
Do the naming style on the root folder, but you can keep your files in here. You can go off the naming style a little bit. The one that definitely needs to be in the Canvas naming scheme is the root folder. Okay. So I can tell which is which. Okay, so I've started my 7.1 index like I have been. I'm just going to name this document. I'm going to call it JS, var, and functions, because that's what we're going to be working on today. But I'm going to abbreviate to var and func with a parentheses, just so it's nice and truncated and easy for us to see. Okay, so we don't have anything in the body yet because we're still doing some setup with our different file types, connecting all of our different pieces together here so that we have a fully functional page at the end of whatever we're doing. So now, since we are kind of getting into the full stack, the full breadth, full like completeness of a web page with HTML, CSS, and JS, we're going to need to make all three of those file types when we do setup, so that they're all connected and ready to go before we start doing any designing. So I'm gonna left click on my styles folder and then right click for new file. We'll call this one 7.1 style.css. And then we'll go into the scripts folder and do a similar process, but instead of CSS, we're gonna call it 7.1.js for JavaScript. So we're gonna right click on scripts, new file, 7.1.js for JavaScript. And then you can see in your tabs, we have 3 different file types across the top here, all of them with some type of 7.1. So I know which assignment I'm working with here, and HTML, CSS, and JS all in one. It's basically the exact same root folder setup that we've done for units 5 and 6 and the basic HTML and CSS setup we've done since unit 4, except now we just have a script subfolder for our JavaScript that we're going to put our programs in here. The last step before we actually start talking about the applications of the things that I'm showing you today that are relevant to 7.1 is we need to connect these files back to our index page. And we know how to do that with style sheets because it's a Zelda link. So you'll go into the head section of your document, type out LINK, hit enter. That's going to get you your REL style sheet and your href. And then we're going to put the subfolder first inside of that hypertext reference to connect that style sheet back to our index page. Again, this is all stuff, I know I'm going a little fast, but this is all stuff that we have done before. And then the last thing we need on that Zelda link is a type equals text slash CSS. You type LINK and then hit enter, and it should pop up automatically, but not as a tag. You just type the letters.
Wait, you have to do LINK colon CSS.
Okay, I didn't know that. Cool. We'll try that next time. All right. So this is a Zelda link that we're used to with the rel equals style sheet, the href to our specific file, and then the type equals text slash CSS. To link a JavaScript file, you can put it in the head in the future, but for now, we're going to put it in the body of the document because the way that JavaScript tends to read, it needs to come last so that it has all of the information it needs above it so that it can know what you're asking it to do. Basically, all that means is your JavaScript connection file or your JavaScript connection element in HTML should be closer to the end body tag. It should be closer to this slash body. So I'm going to start out with that by typing script colon src. You're going to see the pop-up wrench right here. That means JavaScript file with a specific source, and src is exactly the same as it would be for images. So I'm going to start with my subfolder of scripts. It's going to pop up right here. And then I'm going to click on my JS, my yellow JS file, 7.1.js. And this is the equivalent of a Zelda link, but for JavaScript, right? The Zelda link works to attach multiple style sheets to a document. The script src works to attach JavaScript files to an HTML document. Does that make sense? So this is the full amount of setup that you'll be doing, the kind of the tinkering, getting your pre-flight check ready before you start coding. If you're using all 3 of the front end languages, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Anybody have any questions on that so far? Are we good to start talking about comments and variables? We all good? Okay, I'm going to continue forward. We're going to leave this style sheet blank for now because we don't really need it, but in case we do, it's ready to go for us. When you're writing JavaScript, you can see I'm in the JS file. It is really important to leave comments on what you're doing, to take notes on what these specific functions do, because if you remember from yesterday or the other day when I showed you, I actually don't know if I showed you, but I will demonstrate it here one more time. JavaScript gets really, really heavy, really, really fast. So you need to understand what each piece is doing, and you do that with comments. The difference between like our CSS comments and our HTML comments is there's 2 different types of comments for single line versus multi-line JavaScript. So if I have a single line JavaScript comment, instead of typing out like in CSS, it would be slash asterisk, and then you'd have to go to the end, right? And asterisk slash like CSS, or hold on, just did it right there. You can still quick comment with the keystroke command question mark, but a single line JavaScript comment starts with //. So this is anytime your JavaScript commentary is only taking up 1 line on your code, on your IDE, it's //. And so this would be details on something like a variable or a simple function or a I don't know, extra steps or something like that. Leaving notes for yourself along the way in your JavaScript files. To do a multi-line comment in JavaScript, multiple line, oh, that was not what I wanted. Line, stop doing that.
Multiple audio.
Yeah, multiple line comment. That is more like CSS. We're gonna go slash asterisk, slash asterisk, and then asterisk slash. It's exactly the same setup there. And you can also highlight the multi-line comment and control question mark. And it did not do what I need it to, of course. But multi-line comments behave like CSS comments. So CSS comments.
Are we writing that?
These are they'll be, yeah, you can, these are just notes. You can take them or leave them. CSS comments equal multi-line JS comments, like this.
Okay, fine.
So we'll do something like this so that you guys have a visual for the difference between single line JavaScript and multi-line JavaScript comments. Okay. So the next thing that I want to focus on in kind of the intro to the syntax of JavaScript, the rules of these languages that allow you to type them and allow them to do what you're actually asking, is the console log function. So what this does, and it's helpful, or it will be relevant to the function portion of today, the later in the JS functions portion. Console.log is a way to make a little note in your browser when something specific happens, like an error or misplaced variable or something is conflicting, whatever. Console.log is a way to keep track of what's going on your page. And so to do that, you type exactly how it's seen on the this I do want you to type. If you didn't take any of the note lines, you don't have to, but console.log, then you put a parentheses. This means it's going to look at the console of the page and then log whatever happens inside of these parentheses. And this can be whatever you want. This can be some type of error. It can be an entire JavaScript function for when something goes wrong, but we're going to just have it say, this is a console log. All right. So what this does, because this JS is attached to this index page, when I go to run 7.1 index, the only thing that's on there currently is the script in the body. And since that's invisible, nothing will actually appear on the page, right? We have a blank page besides our JS, var, and functions up in the title. But if I right click on my page, middle finger click, and I go down to inspect, there's a tab on the inspector, all these different tabs that says console right here. You can see that that line that we put in our JavaScript, this is a console log, is going to appear inside of this console here. So if I go back to my JavaScript and I put another console log function, console.log, parentheses, quotes, this is the next console log. And then we'll do that one more time, console.log, parentheses, quotes, and single or double quotes work for JavaScript. It doesn't matter. It works for both of them. Maybe an error happened here. Conflicting variables. And variables in JavaScript is short for VA, or VAR is short for variables in JavaScript. So if we go back to our page, let's close the inspector. There's still nothing here because all we've done so far is add these console logs with JavaScript. So if we go back to inspect, right click inspect, and then console, the second tab underneath the inspector next to the magnifying glass, you can see that our 3 console logs have happened here. And they're going to be related to the line in the JavaScript file. So this says 7.1.js, and then it's on line 11. I think that means 9 characters, but line 11, this is a console log. line 11, this is a console log, and then 12 and 13 respectively, just like these other two console logs are. This will make more sense as we get into actually assigning variables and creating more functions. You can use console log to see, or when something happens, a specific event, like your user clicks on the page or refreshes the page or the page loads, you can make little notes happen for the browser. This is that client side portion of browsing, or of JavaScript, I mean. It's just a way to leave more notes for your computer to help it more understand what you're trying to do. And this, again, will make more sense as we progress forward. So here's your notes on some of the basic kind of note keeping of JavaScript syntax. We got single line comments, multi-line comments, and then that console log feature. Console log is one of the ways that you can create a program because you are giving the computer instructions to do a specific thing based on specific locations and specific actions. So all of that is to say, this is just a way to keep track of your program and make sure that it's working good. So now let's talk a little bit about variables. Variables in JavaScript are very similar to what they are in algebra. They're going to hold values in a couple of different ways. And the three biggest ways that you can use variables, I'm going to just make a little H1 that says JS variables. We're kind of taking notes today more than we're really working on 7.1. You'll still have some time tomorrow in case we run out of time today. So JS variables and then an H2. Inside of that H2, I'm going to type var, comma, let, comma, the word and, const. These stand for variable. These stand for the word let when you're creating a statement like in logic or algebra. And then this stands for constant. So constant is a little misleading. It doesn't actually be form like a constant sort of variable. It's all very kind of up in the air, and it's gonna, we're just gonna focus on var for the time being.
What's LT again?
It's the word let. So like, if you set a variable let x equal to 5, it just is very similar to typing variable x equals 5. It's used more in something called like if-thens, but we'll work on that in a second. We're just going to focus on var for today, var. So if you go to the, now it's going to pop up here. If we go to the agenda for the day, or the thread for the day, I mean, there is a W3 schools, I've linked right here, for JS variables. This is going to walk you through, or this is a great resource for reference, talking about all the different ways that variables work. Obviously, they are containers for storing variables, or data, excuse me. And there's three main ones, let, var, let, and const. So we have x, y, and z currently have no value. We have not given them any value. JavaScript does not know what to do with them because we have not assigned anything to them. They will be automatically declared when they are first used. So the first time that you type out x equals 5, y equals 6, and z equals x plus y, these three things, if you put them in a JavaScript file, even without the var, let, and const, this is what they're going to be consistently. They're not going to be able to change until later. Yeah, Grace.
So technically like this, you can almost like this is like Python kind of.
Like what?
Python?
Similar. Yeah, they have a lot of similarities.
Both.
Okay. So it's good programming practice to declare variables before you use them. You always want to set your variable before you start actually trying to apply it to a program, because if you go the other way, you're working backwards and things don't always work out as easily as you might want them to. Okay. So this is going to break down if x is 6 and y, or sorry, x is 5 and y is 6. That means obviously x becomes 5 in the variable situation, y becomes 6 in the variable situation, and z is going to act as the value 11 because it's the function of x plus y. This is similar to this, but where you just declare it automatically. But if you set it as a variable, it's one of the more not ancient, but early versions of JavaScript. So this is going to work better on older browsers because let and const were not added until 2015. And you want to only use variable if you're designing purposely for older browsers. So if we look at the try it yourselves for let and const, we can see that there's some JavaScript here. With the paragraph ID of demo. Let x equal to 5, just mean every time you see an x, it's going to be 5. Let y equal 6, right? Every time it's going to be 6. And then z equals x plus y. The value of z is going to be plus z inside of our script here. So let me see here, hold on. It's going to add the z variable right here because z equals x plus y. We're getting into some serious algebra here, which is not my best subject in school, so.
Wait, is let's like, can some change to X and Y later in the script?
You can. You have to, you can go back and change them in your declaration, in your original declaration, but, and they'll reflect later on, but we'll get into, if you set a variable and then try to set it again later, sometimes that will create a conflict because there's only one X. Here, I'll show you, hold on. Let's see. So. Let's look through this W3 schools a bit more. This one is going to, this is the one that I'm referencing pretty frequently when I'm trying to use variables because it has these breakdowns of when to use each of these specific variables. You always want to use const if the value should not be changed. It's kind of like a control value in science, right? And then we'll get into arrays later, so you can ignore that for now. Only use let if you can't use const, and then only use variable if you must have support for old browsers, which for the most case, we're not really working on here. So, right, let's see, variables are used in our expressions here. Variables are just containers for storing values. I know we're getting kind of all over the place a little bit here. This is the big thing that I want you to keep in mind. Variables are just containers for storing values exactly like they are in algebra. So, let's look through this a little bit more here.
What?
Let's see. What we'll do for our purposes is we're going to go into our JS file and we're going to set some variables by just typing variable x is equal to 5, variable y is equal to 10, and variable z is equal to x plus y. So this gives JavaScript a little bit of information about what each of these things actually mean because we have officially declared them before we started using them. It's just basically kind of taking more notes, preparing your arguments if you're thinking about like conclusion writing or experimentation in science. We're just gathering all of our materials before we start doing anything with those materials, before we start forming any hypotheses or anything like that. So we'll just leave those in here for now. Did I show you document write the other day? I can't remember.
I think so.
Okay, cool. So we'll just worry about that later. Just copy this for now. Variable equals, very x equals 5, very y equals 10, and very z equals x plus y. Let's go back to the, here, let me, actually, I will freeze it on the board and I will continue going at a different rate in the Zoom room. So if I change this, perfect. Okay, so let's see, what else can we work with here? Identifiers, data types. Undefined, okay, we'll get into that more in a second. Okay, let's talk briefly about functions and how to set those up. The most common function used in JavaScript or whenever you're learning a new programming language is going to be the hello world function. It's going to make text appear on the screen, going to make the computer say hi to whoever's reading it, and it helps you understand how to actually make things happen when in whatever language you're trying to learn. So let me show you the resource on that. We go into our, not this one. Yes, it is this one actually. JS function basics. We're going to focus on creating a couple different ways to make JavaScript appear on your page. Where did there we go. All right. So there's 3 ways to actually build a function that we're going to, or this hello world function. One of the ways is using console log. One of the ways is using something called alert. And then one of the other ways is using document write, which we showed you, or I showed you the other day. So let's do console log. I'm back in my JS file. If I type console.log, exactly like we did earlier, quote, hello world, we go back to our output, all we have here is break down the pieces of a function. This is what we want it to reference, just like document versus console. So we want it to reference the console. After the period comes what we want it to do. In this case, it's log, it's make a note. And then after that, we say, what do we actually want it to log? So we have reference the console, do this action of log and set the action to this. So now, if I go back to my output, let me freeze the screen. So if you need to check, you can do that. Okay. Oh. There we go. So console.log, if we go to our output here on the Zoom room, you can see that in the console, underneath all of our other console logs, there's our hello world appearing on 7.1js.line 19 as the first instance of a function. If you're looking at the Zoom room, this line right here, line 19, console.log, is creating that log in the console right here. It's the first way that you can make hello world appear on your output, and the first way that you can create a program using JavaScript. The other way that you can make it, since we're all in this same external JavaScript file, hit enter 2 times, go to line 21. I am going to I skipped a step. Hold on. This is where you can start using comments to describe what you're doing. So I'm going to go / console log hello world function. So that when I read back through this JavaScript file, I can see what's referenced underneath so that I know what's going on here when I come back and re-pick up this file after I finish working on it for the day or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. We're going to try another way to make hello world appear on the screen by typing 2 slashes and using the alert function. So / using the alert function like this. Okay. The alert function is going to make a pop-up appear on your screen. And the same way that console log logs whatever you put in between the parentheses and the quotes, the alert is also going to happen. So if you just type the word alert and then some parentheses and quotes, whatever you put inside of these parentheses is going to be the pop-up that appears on your screen. So if I type out again, hello world, one more time. If I go Control S, we'll do an exclamation point. We're a little more excited this time. You can see that my Firefox is, you can't really see it on the screen, but you can see it in the Zoom room. You can see that my Firefox is turned orange because, why didn't it work? Let me try again. Let me refresh. There we go. So if yours doesn't appear, refresh your browser and you can see there's going to be a pop-up window that says whatever you put inside of the text. If I go back to my VS Code, it says this will contain whatever, or this will pop up whatever you type inside of these quotes. All right, when we go back to the output, refresh, it's going to say this will pop up whatever you type inside of these quotes. There's no space between what and ever, but that's what we're doing. All right, so that's the alert function. It's one of the more simple ones, just to make something happen on your page that's a little bit more interactive. Your user can click on stuff, which is just what a website's about, basically. And then we're going to do a similar function on our third way to create the hello world function, or the hello world action. I'm running out of time here. Hold on. We're going to / to leave a comment. This is going to be document write method. So the same way that we structure console.log to perform a specific action in a specific spot, we can use document.write to do it's exactly the same setup, but on the actual user's end as compared to the console's end. So I'm gonna write hello world will now appear in the HTML document. So looking at this, the JavaScript is going to read the document that it's attached to. It's going to perform the write function, which just makes text appear on the screen. And the same way that the alert pop-up only displays what's in the parameter section, the parentheses and the quotes, hello world will now appear in the HTML document. So if I look at my HTML file, the only two visible elements are this H1 and this H2, right? But if I go back to my output, it should have, there it is. It has appeared, hello world will now appear in the HTML document. So you notice how this text is above my JS, my two headings right here? That's because wherever my script file is, or wherever my script element is, that's where this function is going to happen. So in the document flow, if I were to put this script line 11, Control X to cut that out, if I put that underneath my variable or my H1 and my H2, it's going to put that after my H1 and my H2 in my output. Same thing if I were to put it in between, Control X to the, ooh, I don't know what I did there. Okay. Control X to delete that. Put it in between my H1 and my H2. Control S to save, go back. The alert's going to pop up every time I save. I just moved the script element in between the H1 and the H2, and it's now going to do the JavaScript. So I'm going to do the document write method in between the H1 and the H2 because that's where the script is attached. So what 7.1 is asking of you is, if you look at Canvas here, if you've been following along, you've basically got the majority of it going on here. Hold on, let me go into our Canvas and stuff. All right. Let's see. So you should be able to see Unit 7. I published it and stuff. I don't know why it's not. There it is. Okay, cool. JavaScript January. All right. So assignment 7.1 has a due date of tomorrow and a deadline of the 19th with the root folders. We created our complete web page with HTML, CSS, and JS in the Unit 7 root. So we did all of our setup stuff that contains a simple example of variables and functions. So the variables, which we set in the JavaScript file, we haven't done anything with them yet, but they are there in case we want to use them, and we'll put them in at another time. So this, as long as you've got a variable of some kind set, you can set your names to be whatever. You can set this to be X, Y, and Z can be whatever variable you defined, or literally what you name them, kind of like CSS classes and IDs. And then you can assign them to any numeric value and then combine them together. So like if I set variable X to be, I don't know. So sorry, actually, before I show you the way that you can set the variables, JavaScript uses something called, it's called a lower camel case, like the animal. So lower camel case, right? This is uppercase, obviously. This is lowercase, obviously. Camel case is used like this, where you create capitals in the instead of spaces, you add a capital letter where you want space to be. So see, it has this hump right here, quote unquote, like a camel would. JavaScript very frequently uses something called lower camel case. So you're going to start with a lowercase letter and then have your uppercase be the separation between the letters. So like if I'm writing a function, for example, and I'm naming my function, we're going to call it function name. Function is going to be the first word, that's going to be lowercase, but N is going to be capitalized so that I have function name, whatever I want to decide my my f of x to be here. And then we'll do like, you know, parentheses and then quotes. We'll get more into the like actual function setup in a second. But camel case is important because every time you establish a function, it's going to be case sensitive like a password would be. So if I had a function after this, that was function of function name. These are two totally different programs, or two totally different things that my JavaScript is going to be doing because they have different names, even though the letters are exactly the same. So if we go one more time here, function equals all lowercase. These three things, line 24 to 34, are all separate functions, even though they have the exact same letters in the name. It's just the combination of the capitals and the lowercases is what changes the way that they actually work. So all of that is to say, keep in mind that JavaScript is most commonly using this lower camel case. Oh. This is the one that you're going to be using the most frequently. This is kind of more of a note-taking day than like an actual application day. Tomorrow, because we have only 10 minutes left here. Tomorrow, we'll talk about how to actually start creating some functions and that take advantage of the variables that you set. But if you want to do these three hello world simple functions, you can do those as well. So you can see that JavaScript even still confuses me. It's a harder one to teach because it does take quite a bit of time to get used to. But is this making any type of sense yet? More or less? Okay. This is getting us prepared. We're still kind of building our JavaScript toolkit. Yeah. I'll have this video accessible for resources later on. You guys don't have to really do anything with the remainder of today. Tomorrow we'll be walking through how to actually apply these functions using variables. And we'll just kind of keep going from there, step by step. Okay, thank you guys for listening.